This is the Cubs POSTCAST, your instant game reaction for the Chicago Cubs. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
What's up, everybody? Welcome into the Locked On Cubs POSTCAST here on the Locked On Cubs YouTube channel. Joe George here with you on all social media platforms at Joe George. Ready? The Cubs lose a disappointing game 8-6. Late bullpen issues from Brad Keller. Lots of missed opportunities from the lineup in this game. So disappointing. I think the key word for the loss to the Cardinals today. And today's episode is brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. All right, let's start today's show off with our turning point of today's game.
Time to reveal where the game was won or lost. It's the turning point.
Funny comment here in the chat real quick. Ask me if my house is smoking. No, I got to do camera because it wasn't working and it's fuzzy. I can't figure it out what is happening, but it's better than it was. All right, let's talk about the turning point of today's game. Brad Keller, obviously there in the end of the game in the 8th inning. Gives up 5 earned runs, 5 hits. Now, look, this is a guy that's been pretty good this year. Even 5 earned runs in 1 inning of baseball only brings up his ERA to a 2.88 ERA on the season. So, for the most part, Brad Keller's been really good. There's been not a lot to complain about this year. You're going to a bullpen game with the Jamison Tyone injury that you have on the mound, and all of a sudden, it's gone well. I mean, like you're battling. You've got a lead. You've only given up 3 runs. Pomerantz was shaky to start. Flexen was very good after that. But then Keller comes in and just kind of it unloads a little bit against him. And really, I think the key turning point you could almost look at very specifically from his perspective is that bunt situation that happened. Now, there's not a guarantee that the inning doesn't unravel in the way that it does, or there's not an errant throw on the play. But that play where it's a bunt and Kelly and Keller are clearly just not on the same page of who is supposed to be getting the ball, who's supposed to be throwing to first base, and they end up basically just like hugging each other. Disappointing game. That's all this was for Keller. I mean, besides that, the bullpen for the most part was really good. I mean, you go out there and you are asked to do things you're not expected to normally do, which is pitch, basically and be perfect. The wind's blowing out. It's so, they kept the Cardinals at bay for most of the game. It's just the Keller collapse that really does them in at the end of the game. Now, we're going to do the turning point here, but I think it's unfair to pin this entire game on the on Brad Keller and the loss to the St. Louis Cardinals, because the lineup has to take some responsibility for it. Now, they scored 6 runs. So, to be honest, like scoring 6 runs is plenty of runs for your team to win a baseball game, okay? But there were lots of missed opportunities from the Cubs lineup in this one that when you win a baseball game, they go unnoticed. You don't have to focus in on them as much. But the Cubs can't do that today because if you go back to the very beginning of this game, bottom of the 1st inning, Ian Happ walk, Kyle Tucker single. So it's 1st and 2nd with no outs. Seiya Suzuki strikes out. PCA walks. And then you get a Dansby Swanson strikeout and a Carson Kelly fly out. So nothing happens there. Then in the bottom of the 4th, a brutal inning, honestly, because the Cubs could have really blown this thing open. They only get 2 runs. But Michael Busch hits a double, who's on a heater. We'll talk about him here in a little bit. So you got a runner on second with no outs. Nico Horner walks, a wild pitch. So it's 2nd and 3rd with no outs. You're down 3-1 in this situation. Matt Shaw hits a grounder to third base. Busch takes off. Tough read for him. He's thrown out at home. So it's 1st and 2nd with 1 out. Then you get a double steal. So it's once again 2nd and 3rd with 1 out. You get opportunities again. You get a dribbler that brings in a run. So it's 3-2 Cardinals. And then Kyle Tucker has a check swing ground out to the first base side, and the inning is over. So you have runners on second and third multiple times in this inning, and you only get 1 run out of it, and it's multiple guys. Like, I understand. I see a lot of the stuff in the chat. While I agree with the idea and everything about Dansby Swanson moving down in the order, so far, these 2 situations here, he's only come up 1 time. And then the bottom of the 6th comes up again, where the Cubs get the lead in this inning, but didn't do as much damage as they could have. Carson Kelly gets the grounder double as it goes into the ivy. Michael Busch gets a single, so it's 1st and 3rd with no outs. The Cardinals give you another free base on a wild pitch, so it's 2nd and 3rd with no outs. Nico Horner gets the bloop single, so you score a run there. A wild pitch scores a run. So the Cardinals have gifted you multiple base runners and a run here to make it 4-3. Ian Happ walks. Then we get the end of the inning. Kyle Tucker, fly out. Suzuki, walk, bases loaded. PCA, strikeout, inning over. So 3 separate innings where, yes, 2 of them the Cubs scored runs, but they just didn't do enough. They had plenty of opportunities to get it done, and they just didn't. So that's why this game, yes, I think you can absolutely look at Brad Keller for this game and put the blame on him and say he's the reason why the Cubs lost. Because, yes, the lineup scored 6 runs. It's plenty. But the lineup also had multiple opportunities in this game, just not get it done. And even early on, like I think you could even start at the very beginning of the game. When you start with an opener like this, Drew Pomeranz, you want to see him get through at least 1 inning. I mean, they were talking about in the broadcast, you want them to win, get maybe 2 innings if he can get through it, but unable to get out of the first. So he has a shaky start, but Chris Flexen continues to impress. Really, I mean, of all the guys that I think the Cubs have brought in, I think, Chris Flexen has been the most impressive. I mean, Pomeranz, too. Pomeranz has a .76 ERA after giving up those 2 earned runs in the first, and Flexen gave up as a .83 ERA. I mean, the bullpen's been excellent this year, but you're asking a lot for your bullpen in these games. It's a tall task, and, it does add to the level. No, Joseph. Sorry, my son's yelling. It does add to like what you need the Cubs to do at the deadline to add a starter. But really, it's just one of those where it's a disappointing loss. So we'll take a break here. We'll talk about Michael Busch, what he's doing. A little thank you to Craig Counsell for playing him against a lefty. Carson Kelly getting back on track. And we'll go a little bit more into the deadline as well. All coming up next here on the Locked On Cubs postcast on the Locked On Cubs YouTube channel. Today's episode is brought to you by Gametime. We've all been there, logging out early and waiting forever for concert tickets to go on sale, only to lose your spot for a show you've been dying to see. Live music should be about making memories, not dealing with the stress of ticket shopping. And that's where Gametime can come in. Gametime makes getting concert tickets faster and easier than ever, and prices actually drop as it gets closer to showtime. And you can save up to 60% off with their last-minute killer deals. If you're tired of just endlessly scrolling trying to find the best deal, Gametime Zone Deal Picks has the best seats in your section for you. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets and show tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off. Download the Gametime app today. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. All right, let's talk about the good stuff that happened in this game. We talked about the bad stuff. There's still plenty of good that happened. We're going to focus on 2 guys here at this point after today's loss. We'll start with Michael Busch. He's obviously on a heater. 4 home runs in his last 2 games. Awesome. And the right decision for Craig Counsell to put him in. Now, Craig Counsell spoke before the game, acknowledged that it happened the other day. But when a guy's swinging the bat that well, you don't take him out against a lefty. I don't care if he's worse against lefties. There's not a large enough sample size to me this season to where it's ever really been in doubt. So it was the right decision for multiple reasons. One, if a guy's hot, you play him. Michael Busch was hot. He crushed it on the 4th of July, 3 home runs. Obviously, we all know that, as the Cubs set a franchise record in home runs on Friday. So it's the right decision to leave him in the lineup. So I like what he did a couple of things here. First of all, where they move him down in the order. So if you're worried about him facing lefties, you move him down. That's fine. He doesn't have to be up, batting 5th, against the lefty. If that's not what Craig Counsell wants to do, that's a fine decision. But you gotta play him. You gotta play him every single day. He is playing at an elite level this season. He has been fantastic for the Cubs. So I hope this is the start of a real trend going forward for Craig Counsell, that he's going to play Michael Busch more often than not against lefties. Now, Justin Turner has to get bats as long as he's on the Chicago Cubs. He's going to play against lefties. But if you're playing 2 lefties in a week, Michael Busch should play against one, and Justin Turner should play against one. That's the way it should go going forward. It shouldn't be what we saw like against the Astros, where the Cubs faced two lefties and Busch sat both of those games. And again, it's not like Justin Turner's out there killing it. So this was the right decision by Craig Counsell, and it did pay off for him. Again, Busch goes 3 for 5 with the home run in this game. So right move, right decision. And I hope that just because Michael Busch hit all those home runs yesterday, it's not the only reason why Craig Counsell did this. I'm hoping that they will continue to play him against lefties. It's very well deserved. And the Cubs lineup, it's very clear, it's just that much better when he's in it, because the frustrations with Dansby, there are still people frustrated with Kyle Tucker with runners in scoring position. And, PCA has a big strikeout with the bases loaded in this game today. Nico Horner had been pretty cold until this game today, or until that big hit in this game. So Michael Busch just makes this lineup better. But the other thing that makes this lineup a lot better is the other guy who hit a home run in back-to-back days, and that's Carson Kelly. In the last 10 days, Carson Kelly has raised his batting average from 245 to 268 in his last 10 games. He is getting back to a place where he just looks much more comfortable out there. And I think there's a couple things. Again, it's a little bit the opposite of Busch. Like, catchers can't play every day. It's hot out there. It takes a lot out of them. Reese McGuire is filled in nicely as we still await the return of Miguel Amaya, which will be at some point after the All-Star break at this point. But Carson Kelly is really getting going again, and that's where this offense can go to a level like we saw earlier in the season. And just to reiterate what I said earlier today on the show, 6 minutes ago, is the Cubs should have won this game based on what the lineup did. There are disappointing moments, yes, but when Kelly and Busch and these guys bring in 6 runs, they need to find a way to win these games. And unfortunately, they just did not do that today. A couple questions and comments here in the chat. See, Gamer NorCal says, not sure why Turner is on the team. Yeah, I mean, it's I don't know. I don't know at this point. It's frustrating, but he's not playing. Like, I think it's not frustrating that Turner specifically. I think it actually leads to a conversation that, like, on this show we haven't talked a lot about, because when we talk about the deadline, we talk about the big fish, the starters, a third baseman, things like that. And that's what people typically ask about. I do think one thing the Cubs need to do at the deadline is get one more bat that's a little bit more serviceable for the bench. You need to get one more guy, I think, and whether that pushes out, Birdie or Brujan or Turner, whoever it does, or, it's one of these guys needs to be replaced with someone that you have a little bit more confidence in a pitch hitting situation if you need them. If there is a lefty-righty matchup that you don't like and you want to make a change, or just add someone that's just honestly better when they're subbing in on the everyday lineup, because that is the other thing to me the Cubs are missing. It's not the end of the world, but, if one injury happens, you have lots of guys in the minors you can bring up potentially, depending on who would get hurt. But just the everyday veteran bench guy that's just a little more talented than what you're getting right now from Brujan, Birdie, and Turner, also to me feels like a very important acquisition at the deadline for the Chicago Cubs. A thing about Turner here, the third base. Yeah, he could have just gone back to third base. I think he just got a bad read on it, honestly. Like, it was hit right behind him. I think that I don't blame Michael Busch for that play at all in any way. It's one of those where it's just a tough read. Like, there's really nothing about it. Like, that's why, you can't crush him for it, honestly. It's just a tough read on the play. And frankly, all the Cubs can do right now is just go back out there tomorrow, get the win, put this one. It's 1 out of 162. The Cubs have won more than 50 games this year. Some of the panic stuff that's out there, it's not for me. That's happening, but they're a first place team. Tough loss today. Great win on Friday, but Matthew Boyd on the mound on Sunday Night Baseball for tomorrow's game. Ryan points out here the third base spot is 1 home run this year. Yeah, again, I think third base would be a position that the Cubs could also add to at the deadline. I'm not sure what kind of money they're willing to spend. I still find it intriguing that they at least called on Devers because Devers has a long-term contract, or had a long-term contract with the Red Sox. So it does open my mind up a little bit to like if the Red Sox were to want to move on from Alex Bregman, would the Cubs, retroactively figure that way to bring him to Chicago to add to the other Astros players they brought in, and Kyle Tucker and Ryan Presley? But yeah, I think a third baseman would make a lot of sense. Chad asks, do I like Craig Counsell as a manager? Yeah, I do. I'll be honest. I don't really believe in managers are as important as other people. It's not Craig Counsell's fault they lost this game today. Yes, I agree with a couple people here in the chat about Dansby Swanson. Yes, I would like to move him out of the 5 spot, but at the end of the day, it's not always Dansby that fails when there's runners on, or it's not Dansby that failed, that it was Brad Keller. So I don't really believe that like you have to be a great manager to win a world. You have to have a great manager to win a World Series. Frankly, look at some of the best managers of all time based on record and what they've done. Dusty Baker, 1 World Series. Joe Madden, 1 World Series? Like, there are a lot of managers who don't win even though they are supposedly great. So I like Craig Counsell. I just don't think that it really is like I can't sit here and often blame a manager for a loss, especially like today against the Cardinals, when it really, at the end of the day, it was the players who didn't get the job done in this one. All right, we'll be back tomorrow night after the Cubs play on Sunday Night Baseball. So thanks for watching. We'll be back tomorrow. Find me on all social media platforms at Joe George Radio. Even though the Cubs lost, I would recommend going back and watching the watch along a little bit with Justin Steele and Sam that was on the channel earlier today. Very, very cool. Got some insight from Justin about where he's at with his injury. So even though the Cubs lost, a good conversation was being had on that show. So definitely recommend going back and checking that out if you haven't yet. So thanks for watching. We'll be back with you tomorrow night. Peace.